What books?
No, they're books!
Then I shall read to you from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Books! All the books I'll need. All the books. All the books I'll ever want.
Well, you'd know if you'd ever read a book about it. I never even seen a book about it.
That in my entire adult life, I have never checked a book out of the library.
In the books and stories we read, we can learn about people and ourselves through reading.
Like, most people don't read for pleasure.
As anyone who knows me will tell you, I'm a bookman. I believe everything in it.
Oh, here's one, required reading, Catcher in the Rye.
You are one of the few that read the book.
It doesn't count. He can't even read.
Why not finally read some of the classics I never read in high school?
What's up?
Just reading.
What do you read, my lord?
You're so bored, why don't you read?
What, you get a book?
That is a traditionally accepted format, yes.
There's absolutely nothing to do.
Look at the scenery. Read a book. Read a book? It's summer vacation.
When I buy a new book, I always read the last page first. That way, in case I die before I finish, I know how it ends.
What makes you think she'll be there?
I read it in a book once.
I've never been there, but I read about it in a book.
Sometime you'll start up again. Read a book.
I read two, 3 books a day.
If it wasn't for the toilet, there would be no books.
Read something sad. Learn a book.
Have you ever read this?
You think that's a good book?
Still sore I never read Moby Dick.
You never read anything I asked you to. I usually read a chapter of a book, and it's lights out by 8:30.
Books by the pound.
I just read books.
He reads.
Read everything that's published in the world.
He reads everything.
What is this obsession people have with books?
I am going to read to you Dickens' classic, A Tale of Two Cities.
A book? What do you want a book for?
I ain't ever read a book in my entire life.
Liz, I've been reading your book.
I know this book.
You magnificent bastard, I read your book!
War and Peace. This is a good book?
Oh, yeah, well, they say the first 800 pages are a little bit slow, but it shoots right off after.
Whoa, wait a second. What are we talking about? I got 5 days. How long is this book?
Well, I've delivered a few for the book clubs, and it's, about 3.5 pounds paperback.
Forget it, Sam. Nobody can read 4 ounces a day.
Certain books are flag.
How can you read this? There's no pictures.
Sarge?
Yes!
I've got a book I'd quite like to read.
Right, you go read your book then.
We have a little problem. I heard that the English teacher over at the school is planning to teach that book.
Slaughterhouse-Five. Isn't that an awful name?
Oh, yeah, it's a great book. Slaughterhouse-Five. Yeah, it's a classic. Do you read much?
Maybe in another town it's a classic.
In any town.
I finish work, I go home, read a book, have a couple of beers.
I read about it in a book.
Ever read this book?
Oh, yeah, that's a great book.
I've read every book about scaring ever written.
I've read enough books.
When I was your age, television was called books.
I'm not going to read it unless I have an offer.
I just read a book for nothing.
Work in Essex County, page 98, right? Yeah, I read that too.
There's only 3 things you can do in a joint, kid. Lift weights, play cards, or get into trouble. What did you do? Me? I read.
No, I've read Treasure Island, The Last of the Mohicans, Wizard of Oz, Lord of the Rings, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Tarzan.
How do you always know all that stuff?
I read. I just don't read what they give us in school. I'm a book, honey. I can read.
It's called reading. Top to bottom, left to right. Group words together as a sentence.
And I have my mind, and a mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone.
And you know what the worst part of all is? I never learned to read.
It's a book. I didn't think reading it would unleash goblin fury, okay?
For all you know, it invites people to rob us.
Well, first man comes along that can read Latin is welcome to rob as far as I'm concerned.
I read about it in the book about it.
They read
I read.
books, Jerry.
Now, maybe if some of you could read, you wouldn't be in here.
I wish I read that book by that wheelchair guy.
I was reading the book in the wrong place.
I don't need the books or the schooling type things. I mean, if I read more books or tried to go on to college and different things like that, I'd be dead right now, because people say books in college are for to be to make you smarter, but they can also be for to be to get you dead, which is what could have happened to me. My brain doesn't use enough oxygen because I don't have the whole thing filled with different stuff. And if it was full, it's only part full, and that's why I'm alive right now.
Sit here in the common area and read my book.
Walt has been assigned a novel to read.
There's different ways to explore the world, one of them being reading.
You should listen to them. Those books are good.
Reading.
Reading? I didn't know you could read.
What are you doing?
Reading?
Learn how to read.
What you reading for?
Wait. You read?
I thought the books were blank.
Buy difficult books.
Moby Dick. What you reading that for?
Rest of the time I was reading. Read? Yeah, I ain't no criminal. I can't read.
You've never finished one book I've given you to read.
I'm Charles Baker Harris. I can read. You got anything needs reading, I can do it. Scout's been reading since she was born.
Tito drove the truck while I read the book.
George Malley, you learned the Portuguese language in 20 minutes?
Not all of it.
I'm gonna read a book. From beginning to end, in that order.
I've always wanted to do that.
Which is why I read. I read a book on that once. Read the back cover. I can't read.
Some books are dangerous.
I wrote the book.
Every night we read a book.
Nobody's read this book?
Goose-stepping morons like yourself should try reading books instead of burning them.
At least he is not a book burner, you Nazi cow.
And so I'll read a book, or maybe 2 or 3.
How many have you read a book about?
Read some books.
It's just a book. No harm ever came from reading a book. You should read the book, Hill. You read my book?
Oh, yes, I do read, Miss Webb.
Tom Sawyer is a classic.
You should read the new book Mark Twain's writing now.
Tonight, we are going to read a new book.
Read that book again sometime.
Yeah, you guys read the book?
I read every book in the library. I read that book too.
He reads deep books with long words in them.
I slept in, I did my yoga, I read a couple of books.
I read a lot of books.
Gotta read this book and 6 other books. I read a book.
Because that's as far as I read.
You kissed by the book.
My God, read a book.
I see him reading all these books all the time. Books I never read.
Only read it in books.
Reading a book in front of a fireplace.
Most satisfying reading experiences of your life.
Right. Now, to start off, I want you to read these books.
I read your books.
It's all in books.
You read this book?
Why don't you try simply reading a book?
And I don't think you ought to read any more of that.
Satan is not in these books. He's in here.
I think I'll start a new book.
At home, sitting in my favorite nook. My girl's trying to get me eat some dinner she cooked. I'm reading a book, girl, I'm reading a book. Don't you ever interrupt